What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikiPikaPapa, and I love these grading report videos. We get to actually see what happened in the big four grading companies last month, and that's PSA, CGC, Beckett, SGC. This is like macro level, cardboard collecting, Pokemon investing nirvana here, and there are so many tidbits of awesome information. I just can't wait to share it with you guys. And this report is special because there's some really awesome trends that are going on in the hobby, and we're going to get to talk about them and see what is actually happening from a grading perspective. So again, macro level information, incredibly important, and I get so excited about sharing it with you guys every single month. Speaking about doing this every single month, hey, if you've been watching and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, we would love to have you as a member of this channel. Hit that subscribe button. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. And if you have something to say, drop a comment down below. I really appreciate it. It goes a long way in helping the channel out. And we're just building an awesome community. So if you haven't yet, we'd love to have you as a part of it. Now, with that being said, as I just alluded, there is all kinds of cool stuff to talk about this month. Awesome trends, awesome grading data. And we're going to get into that right now. Guess what? PSA crushed again. No surprise, but man, back-to-back months at 1.2 million cards graded. How crazy of a number is that? Like, sometimes we talk about, oh, you know, maybe they pull these grading specials and they pull these different levers. At the end of the day, PSA is just killing the game. 1.2 million cards doesn't happen by accident. Super proud of them. Their CEO not long ago drew a line in the sand and he said, I want to do 1.25 million cards graded per month. They haven't gotten to 1.25. They're knocking on the door, but no one is complaining about 1.2. Super awesome results there for PSA. On the other side of the coin, look at the other grading companies. So PSA is so far and above everybody else in the left graph. We have to do a special graph on the right where we talk about SGC, CGC, Beckett. And listen, guys, it is not a pretty story. So SGC did all these crazy promos, right? They were like, hey, you don't have to be a member of our collectors club. Like, there's no limit on how much the value of the card can be. If you send in your cards to us, we're going to get it turned around. I think it was like 5 to 10 days for 10 to 15 bucks. I can't remember, but it was this absolute crazy promo. And SGC saw their submissions spike. But you know what happened when it went away? It crashed. Here's what happens when you run crazy promos like that. You have to make sure that your promo appeals to your core clientele, or else you're not going to get sticky results from the promotion that you run. That's what happened with SGC. They ran this crazy promotion. I'm sure a lot of people were just like, well, sure, I'll send my cards in. Why not? Like, it's silly not to. So they got slammed with all these submissions. But now that the promo's gone away, look what happens. They crashed to the right. Beckett, what is going on? I love Beckett, right? Like, Beckett is so nostalgic for me. I remember sprinting to the mailbox as a kid to get my Beckett magazine because that was the only way I knew what my sports cards were worth back then. There was no internet. But guess what? Beckett was on an upward to the right trajectory. They were gaining some ground, and then for whatever reason, Beckett announced we were going to change our grading scales. And guess what? The market freaked the heck out. Matter of fact, there was so much backlash, Beckett had to step back from their comments and say, okay, hold on. We're still going to do something at some point, but we're not going to do this right now. And look what happened. They dropped in submissions. When you were trying to right a ship, when you were trying to get Beckett back on track, why would you change? Why wouldn't you double down on your foundation, double down on what made you great all those years ago? When I first started collecting, Beckett 9.5s were far and away more expensive than PSA 10s. When you want to get back to the Graceland, you got to double down on the fundamentals. You got to double down on the basics. And I don't know why in God's green earth they would decide to try and change their grading scale right when it seemed like they were gaining some momentum, but they did, and the market responded, and they dropped off. CGC, I don't know what the heck's going on there. They're all over the place every single month. All I know is the last 2 months they have been downward to the right. They have now graded the same number of cards as Beckett. I don't know. Whatever they're doing, it ain't working. I'll tell you that much. So now that we've looked at all of them in their totality, let's take a look. Now, we look at PSA specifically because everything we just mentioned. PSA is the top dog. PSA grades way more cards. So when we want to get a true macro level feel of what's going on in the hobby, PSA is the one that we look at. So these are the most graded sets in April. Now, the top 3 sets remain the same. No surprise to see Crown Zenith up there. No surprise to see the 1999 Pokemon game up there. And Japanese Sword and Shield V-Star Universe has been #1 for like 3 months in a row. So not a big surprise there. But here's what is really cool. We have some awesome PikiPikaPapa data exclusive here because the company that produces this report, gemrate.com, reached out to me and said, hey, we see that you're doing a video on our stuff. If you have any questions, let me know. My contact, his name is Ryan. They are absolutely phenomenal. They are obsessed with getting you guys the best data possible. Again, that's gemrate.com. I thank them so much. So I asked them a question. I said, hey, listen, that 1999 Pokemon game, I'm interested in it. Is it shadowless? Is it first edition? Is it unlimited base set? And they confirmed that it's all wild into one. No big deal. But here's what I also learned. I learned that there's about 8,000 unlimited base set cards that are graded per month versus about 2,000 first edition and 2,000 shadowless. So, you know, unlimited gets graded at about a 4-to-1 ratio of the other two. And only the unlimited base set would be in the top 10 if we were to break them out, because they're at about 8,000. They'd be above the Japanese Sword and Shield EV Heroes. They'd be below Evolving Skies, and the other two would drop off. But for me, this is really important information to call out. Like, I think this is really interesting. Because again, when you think of first edition, when you think of shadowless, you think of exclusivity, you think of rarity, you think of, hey, I pay a premium for these cards because, and this confirms the fact that, hey, you know, the base set unlimited 1999 is getting graded at a 4-to-1. So, I mean, I don't know how you equate that into a value perspective, but it is nice to know that that is what's happening. It was also very interesting to me to see that over the last 3 months, because they provided me with 3 months of data, it was really cool to see that first edition and shadowless graded about the same rate. I don't know why I expected it to be like unlimited base set and then shadowless and then first edition way down here, but they're grading at about the same rate, first edition and shadowless. So that was really cool. Awesome stuff. We're now going to get some data, so I'm going to keep an eye on that as we go. But again, as I said, the Japanese cards are all over this most graded sets, and I get a ton of questions about Japanese cards in the comments down below. I am committed to you guys. I'm going to do due diligence. I'm going to do some research. I will never make a comment. I will never give any opinion unless I fully understand the product and I fully understand the market, and right now I don't for Japanese. So I'm going to learn it. I'm going to put some time into it, and I hope to get you guys some answers. But what I can tell you is this: they are being graded like hotcakes. Look at this. Japanese Sword and Shield V-Star Universe. Then you have Crown Zenith, no surprise. Then you have the 1999 Pokemon game, no surprise. Then you have Japanese Promo Card Pack 25th Anniversary Edition. Then you have the Japanese Sword and Shield VMAX Climax, right? 3 of the top 5 sets are Japanese sets. Then you have the Pokemon Sword and Shield Black Star promo. You'll see why that's still up there in a minute. Then you have Evolving Skies. We know Evolving Skies is like a freaking freight train. Awesome to see that people are still grading the heck out of it. Japanese Sword and Shield EV Heroes, Japanese Sword and Shield Incandescent Arcana. Very cool to see that up there. And then at the very bottom, Silver Tempest. So really interesting to see the sets that are graded. That gives us some information as to where a lot of collectors and investors are spending some time and getting that cardboard slabbed up. Now, very next slide right here is the most graded cards. So these are individual cards, and for me, it's really important to call a couple things out, and I'm going to start off by looking at the very first one. Pokemon Japanese Scarlet and Violet Promo Pikachu Pre-Order. I think that is an absolute beautiful card. I love it. I will absolutely own it in PSA 10, but what's interesting to me is the first column there is all-time graded. So you see 17.4. That means 17,400 of these have been graded. In April, 4,900 were graded, which is a 3% growth over March. Okay, that's column 1, 2, 3. On the right-hand side, that little addition I have on there, you have the gem rate. So out of those 4,900 that were graded in April, 88% got a gem mint 10. In March, 88% got a gem mint 10. And the all-time gem rate is 89% for that card. So out of the 17,400 Pokemon Japanese Scarlet and Violet pre-order Pikachu #1s, out of 17,400, almost 90% of them got a gem mint grade. And I'm going to tell you this is one of the things that's really hard for me to conceptualize and think about and try and factor in, is the Japanese cards gem out at an incredible rate. Look at them, 89%, 88%. We finally have one which is a little lower at 71%, but that's still crazy high compared to all the US cards, 94% and 92%. So what I'm saying is this: I don't know if there's any exclusivity or rarity which drives value when we think about Japanese cards being in PSA 10 gem mint, because there's tons of them, right? Like, why would I buy a sealed product, or why would I buy a slabbed product when I could just buy the sealed product, hope to pull it, and know that there's a 90% chance that it's going to grade out at PSA 10 gem mint? Those are some of the things that are rattling around in the old hamster wheel for PikiPikaPapa to try and think about. So we have that Scarlet and Violet pre-order Pikachu, which we talked about. Then you got another Japanese Incandescent Arcana one, the Serena card. Then you have the Sword and Shield Crown Zenith Full Art Pikachu. I love that card. That is a really high gem rate for a US card, an all-time gem rate at 60%. Then you got the Japanese Sword and Shield VMAX Art Gloria. It's nice to see that these Japanese cards have got some full art trainers that are coming up there. Then of course you got the Japanese promo card, the Charizard Holo, right? Everybody loves Charizard. And then without breaking it out, you got 3 of those Black Star promos from that Charizard UPC set that are grading right there. So 3 of them. 3 of them. That is a huge, huge, huge number for a set that has been out for a long time, and is interesting to see them still there. And then you have the Pokemon Sword and Shield Crown Zenith Radiant Charizard. So Charizard all over this list. Again, no surprise. All right, very next up, these are the most graded subjects. So these are the most graded Pokemon and all of the PSA. the top 7 never seems to change. It's always Charizard, Pikachu, Mew, Umbreon, Blastoise, Rayquaza, and Venusaur. Those always seem to be the same. Now, one thing I learned from my friends at GemRate.com is that Mew is, in fact, Mew and Mewtwo slammed into one. But if you look at the total graded at 19,700, even if you divide that by 2, good old Mew and Mewtwo are going to be in the top 10 no matter what. So no surprise there. This list has been dominated by Pokemon cards in the past. It is nice to see Blue Eyes White Dragon jumping up there. And what I'm talking about here is we focus on this list as a whole. The top 7 never change. It doesn't, to me, they have the name brand recognition. They have the power. They aren't going to fall off because they're getting overgraded. Charizard is always going to have a somewhat of a premium, right? Those Charizard Ultra Premium Collection cards we just talked about, those Black Stars, people are always going to want to buy them. They might not buy them for thousands of dollars, but there's always going to be a demand in a market for them. Same thing with Pikachu, Mew, Umbreon, Blastoise, and the others in the top 7. What I take away from this is I look at the bottom half, so the Giratina, the Marnie, the Arceus, the Zapdos, right? We've talked about the Giratina card. That's being driven in my mind by that Crown Zenith Gold card. I think a lot of people are out there getting it graded. I think a lot of people are also getting the alt art Giratina getting graded. Like, Giratina's got a lot of good press right now. The question is, long term, is Giratina going to be able to hold up to all of these cards getting graded? We'll have to see. So far, we've seen some of them slipping in price. The alt art is still doing great, but that gold one out of Crown Zenith is dropping down. And then Marnie, I love Marnie, right? Like, I have cards at PSA right now of Marnie. I got 5 Marnies there. Is she strong enough? Can she substantiate long-term growth? If we get a ton of them out there graded in the market, we shall see. But that's why on this list, I think it's really cool to look at the bottom half versus the top half. All right. Now we're going to look at grades by category, and this is super cool for me. This is one of those nuggets that I absolutely love. So in December, I started tracking this. I thought it would be really interesting to see what the 3 major ball sports, baseball, basketball, football, how they stack up against the TCG space every single month. Remember, I transitioned from the ball sport space into the TCG space all those years ago, right? Like, I am an old school ball sport collector. So for me, it's really interesting to see how they stack up. Now in December, TCG was only 81.5% of all the major ball sports graded, right? So if 100 ball sports cards were graded, 81.5 TCG were. Then in January, it dropped down to 70%. And I was like, man, maybe there's no point in tracking this. Maybe there's not a there. Then in February, they had to go ahead and pop off at 94.6%. In March, 86.7%. In April, 88.9%. So it seems like we're gaining some traction. My belief is long-term, TCG is going to take over ball sports in the world of cardboard grading, cardboard collecting, cardboard hobby. I think that that is a big part of the future, and believe it or not, as big of a sports guy as I am, I think that that's going to be where the investment, collecting, and everything is. Ball sports have had a great run for 100 years, but I think TCG, with its global recognition, with its huge market power, with the anime things, like, I just think TCG is coming for ball sports lunch. So look at all these different grading companies. You can see how the individual segments have gone up or down. Really rough month for SGC Beckett and CGS, but PSA has some pretty good strength, except for in basketball. It only dropped 6%. Outside of that, TCG up, baseball up, basketball up. Again, PSA is just on freaking fire, right? So then I thought it'd be really cool to look at where does TCG stack up this year compared to last year. So this is April 2022 and April 2023. And look, in April 2022, basketball was higher, baseball was higher. Then you had TCG, which was neck and neck with football. This year, TCG is above all of them. Not only head and shoulders above all of them. Like, baseball is about 50%, but I mean, head and shoulders above all of them. TCG has separated itself so much that I start adding the 3 together in order to make it make sense. Again, this is incredibly awesome stuff. You're going to see on the next slide that April was a very light month for TCG at PSA for whatever reason, but still, this is incredibly cool stuff, and we should all feel really good about this in the TCG space. So, as I said, listen, this is the total cards graded in the TCG category by month at PSA since January of 2022. I had this red line. I call it the baseline. I call it the bottom dollar. I had that at 300,000. I feel safe moving it up to 400, right? Over the last couple months, we've had 389,000, 410,000, 420,000, 485, and 499. 400 is now the baseline. It shall never drop below that, which is really exciting. Again, when you look at the TCG cards graded by month, you see that April of 2022 had this crazy irregularity. I did all the research I could. I couldn't figure out what happened. I don't know if PSA stopped taking TCG submissions or what. Something abnormal happened, but at the end of the day, we're up 339% year over year for whatever reason, and this doesn't include next month. I think we're going to have a ton of Scarlet and Violet impacts. I think a ton of people are sending SNV cards through to get graded, so we should see this number continue to climb and climb. Then I love this section. The only thing I don't love about it is it's a little unfair to the PSA TCG number, and here's why. In this one, we see the gem rate. So these are the total number of cards that are submitted by era to PSA in the TCG space, and what percentage got gem 10. Why was that so hard? What percentage of them got a 10 gem mint? So PSA is the only one where we break out trading card games and sports cards. So what I see is Beckett has a 64.8% gem rate, but that includes sports cards and TCG cards. And if you look at PSA sports cards gem rate for the 2020s is at 47.7. Their TCG rate is at 71.4. If you imagine the same kind of ratio of sports cards grading much lower at a gem rate, TCG grading much higher, then that Beckett at 64.8 makes sense. The TCG space in Beckett is probably much higher than 64.8, and the sports card is probably much lower, and that's how they get to the 64.8 number right there. I only call that out because I don't want people to walk away from this video saying, oh, PSA gives away gem mint 10s. They absolutely don't. I feel very, very strongly that Beckett is right up there with PSA, if not a little bit higher. And it's really interesting to see all these different gem rates by era, especially the PSA column, which is broken out for TCG. I will tell you this, I hurt that average. If you guys watched my last submission, I did not do good. I certainly didn't get a 71% gem rate, but that's the luck of the draw, right? Sometimes we get home runs, and sometimes we get singles, and sometimes we struck out. Last time certainly wasn't a strikeout, but it wasn't my best submission. I have another one coming back. Hopefully we make up some ground there. Again, also a call out here, the high Japanese sub rates are going to drive that TCG gem rate up so much because, again, if the Japanese sets are being the most graded, if the Japanese singles are being the most graded, we know that they're grading out at like an 80, 90% gem rate. Obviously, that's going to raise this gem rate for PSA TCG. So just wanted to call all that out here. Super cool information. Love this. Maybe I'll ask my friends over at gemrate.com if they can break out at least Beckett and maybe SGC gem rates by TCG as well next month. We'll see. Finally, I wanted to end with this slide because this is all of the cards that are graded at PSA as a whole, not broken out by any type of segment, just the rote number, right? 1.226939 million cards graded, almost 41,000 cards graded per day, which is absolutely batty. And the thing that I wanted to call out here is look at this trend line up and to the right. Sure, there's ups, sure, there's downs. You know, it's never straight. It's never up and to the right. But listen, the trend line is up. Is it going to continue? I don't know. But I want everybody to feel really good about the cardboard market as a whole. I want everybody to feel really good about collectors and investors and longtime holders seeing value in PSA slabs, because if they didn't find value in it, this wouldn't be happening. There's a lot of smart people out there in this hobby. There's a lot of smart people who are putting money into it, and they feel like PSA is the right place for their money and their long-term value and their long-term collectability. So I just thought this was really cool to call out. I want everybody to feel good about the hobby. And so there it is. Boom. Up and to the right, PSA, crushing life. All right, everybody, if you made it to the end and you haven't hit the subscriber button, what are you doing? Hit the subscribe button, for goodness sakes. Become a member of this channel. We have a ton of fun. We look at some really cool stuff. I've got a video on Lorcana coming out on Sunday, and it's true PikiPikaPapa fashion. It is black and white. It is facts and figures. I don't know. I might get tomatoes thrown at me, or I might get a round of applause. We shall see. But the one thing I can say is it is all based and backed up by fact. So it's going to be a ton of fun. If you like the content, give us a thumbs up. If you have some questions or comments, drop them down below. I'd love to hear from you. You guys have an epic weekend. I appreciate you. Bye, everybody.